Welcome to Dr. David Eifrig's Health and Wealth Bulletin, a publication of Stansberry Research. This is Weekly Update. Our office is buzzing around here because yesterday, our friend and analyst Dr. Steve Sjuggerud hosted a fantastic webinar about what he sees as the coming boom in an asset class most folks avoid: commodities. Now, in our newsletter, Income Intelligence, we've largely avoided commodities, except for oil, since we launched in 2013. But in early 2017, we called the low in commodities. And today the story is changing, and quickly. Commodities are cyclical assets, meaning they regularly go through boom and bust cycles. And today, commodities look too cheap, and the sector, again aside from oil, has seen a decade of underinvestment. Now, commodities include things like grains, gold, beef, oil, and natural gas. They have higher risk because of these boom and bust cycles, but some of them also make for great chaos hedges. Now, a chaos hedge is disaster insurance. You want to have some in your portfolio should the worst happen. During those times, these hedges will keep you from sinking completely. We usually say to have about 5% of your portfolio in a chaos hedge. And as we've written recently, we're not as bullish as we used to be about this market. We know a bear market is coming, and that's why we're particularly excited about this coming boom. One reason is that commodities benefit from increases in inflation, which we've seen happening. That's because as demand pushes the price of goods and services up, the commodities used also rise. Rising prices can come from rising costs, which is known as cost push inflation, or rising demand, which is known as demand pull inflation. Now, in cost push inflation, the price of inputs for goods rise, from capital, land, labor, or raw materials. And that forces businesses to raise their prices in turn. Now, this is very clearly happening right now. Commodity prices have been rising across the board. So you can put a check in that box next to cost push inflation happening. Moving on to demand pull, we see the same thing. Consumer spending is rising. We're coming off a successful holiday season, now we're coming into the summer, and everywhere you go, planes and hotels are packed. People are out there buying things, and that's driving prices up. And labor factors into both as well. Higher labor costs contribute to cost push inflation, while higher wages energize consumers, leading the demand pull inflation. With inflation and the cost of goods and services rising, we've seen the beginning of a spike in commodity pricing. So if you've been waiting to get into commodities, now is the time. Again, we did mention risk. That's because the value of commodities can change quickly. Take the collapse of gold in 1980, when it fell 40% in just 2 months. In fact, the best way is to know just how to play this cycle. For instance, if you had bought and held commodities for 20 years, you'd have a terrible return. Just take a look at the boom and bust on this chart. But if you had traded at the right points during the cycle, you could have made thousands of % gains. According to the Bloomberg Commodity Index, which includes gold, crude oil, copper, corn, and other commodities, the prices of these so-called real assets are down over a stretch of 2 decades. But that's despite official inflation numbers climbing 54% over the same time period. So it's time that we're finally seeing a boom coming. And that's where our colleague Dr. Steve Sjuggerud comes in. If you want to know the best way to invest in commodities and which ones you should buy now, he's the person with the answers. So if you missed out on the big real estate, bond, and stock market gains in recent years, don't worry. According to Steve, there's a looming bull market in commodities that will give you a chance to invest and potentially more than double your money in the coming years. Last night, Steve explained why commodities are set to move much higher right now and the best way to make these investments. Steve also revealed one of his favorite commodity investments, but we can't tell you what that is here. We can tell you that we've got a special replay of his webinar available for our readers, which you can access in the link in the description below. What's more, we're extending Steve's special offer through midnight tonight, so don't miss out on this great opportunity. Steve will show you which commodity class he likes right now and how to profit from the coming boom. This is a very limited time offer, so don't hesitate. Follow the link below to get started. That's it for today. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.